Greetings, and welcome back to another day in our adventure of horticulture. What we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about starting a garden from seeds. So here you can see we have our seed trays set up. We'll get to those later. In a previous video that I recorded in the week, I went through and planted all these, but I thought it was very in-depth, and I didn't think that that was an appropriate length of video. So here's a shortened summary of it. I like to start things from seed just because I like to be able to know exactly what types of seeds I'm planting, and I can plant specific types of tomatoes, peppers, or any other kind of seeds that I want to start inside. When you're starting a garden from seed, it's very important to make sure that you have a good plan. When you start gardens from seed, for example, I planted all of these at the same time. So this tray is entirely tomatoes. And so I will be getting a bumper crop of tomatoes all at once. A lot of people like to stagger their plantings of tomato seeds. I simply don't have that option because I am trying to get all of these tomatoes done at once for canning later in the season. And if that's the case, you might want to do the same. The reason I like starting things from seeds is because I can control a lot of the factors. I can control the soil type that I get. I can use a potting mix. Whereas if I go to the local hardware store or nursery, I don't know what kind of soil they use, and I prefer to use an organic-based soil for my garden. Another thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is you want to make sure that you're controlling the temperature. As you can see, all of these wires right here, these are all these trays except for one are placed on a seed mat. What the seed mat does is it allows me to control the temperature of each one of these trays. For example, my broccoli, I believe this is the broccoli. I'm sorry, that's tomatoes. My cauliflower needs to be warmer than my tomatoes. My peppers need to be warmer than my broccoli. My broccoli, I simply just did not put a heat mat on it at all. Another thing that I like about starting things from seeds is it gets me really excited. It gets me really excited because I can see everything growing. And when I go to harvest, I can think back to myself and think, I grew this when it was nothing but a seed. Another thing that I like doing in my horticulture nerdiness is I like to control the planting depths. And here's a pro tip. When you're planting your tomatoes, you don't want to fill your cells completely full. By filling your cells completely full to the top and then putting your seed a quarter inch down, you're actually going to not have as great of a root structure, I have found, because if you plant your tomatoes with just a quarter inch of soil at the bottom and then you top dress every week where you just add a little bit of soil as that cotyledon starts to form, you'll actually get a more healthier root. That's different than the peppers, which I fill the cells entirely full and then I plant the seeds a quarter inch down, because the peppers, unlike the tomatoes, won't continue to develop new roots as I top dress them. So another important thing is that you make sure that you water your seeds often enough. These greenhouses aren't 100% sealed, so you're going to lose a little bit of moisture. However, you want to make sure that you're not overwatering them, so it's important that you check the bottoms of the trays as they start to develop. But you need to make sure that you keep your seeds wet when you start your garden. As you can tell here, I have a pretty nice fancy setup, although my rack for my lights does look a little, I don't know what you want to call it. It does look a little cheap, but you know what? It works. Your garden setup doesn't have to necessarily be expensive. This is just a piece of 2x4, a couple of grow lights, and some seed mats strung out here on a counter in my home. But what I like to do is I tried to automate this as much as possible, so the only thing that I had to do was to add water. I have the lights are on a timer. I set the lights up to come on at 5:30 in the morning, and they go off at 8:30 at night. The heat mats are all automatic as well. I can simply set the heat for the desired temperature, and the heat mats will adjust the heat as possible. So you have a heat mat, and then you have a probe that reads the temperature. Another thing that you want to take into consideration when you're starting a garden from seed is you want to make sure that you know how long it's going to take each seed to germinate. You can find that on the back of your seed labels. It'll say days to germination. A lot of these seeds will take 10 to 14 days to germinate if they're at the proper temperature. I've got the seed mats, so I'm hoping that in 14 days I will see everything here that's sprouting. That's kind of the nice thing, whereas when I plant them outside, currently the ground temp is about 40 degrees. So that it just takes one more factor out, along with the lights, along with the timer, and that way we can get a nice, good, solid garden. So that is just some of the quick gardening tips that I can give you to starting a garden inside. Starting a garden from seed inside in early spring. Thanks for watching.